Hello, I'm Howard Bell, and I sit on the board of the Gregorian University Foundation. The GREG, as it is affectionately known, is a US-based foundation established in 1972 to raise urgently needed funds for scholarships, academic chairs, libraries, and capital improvements for the Pontifical Jesuit higher education centers in Rome. On behalf of my fellow trustees, I am thrilled to welcome you to today's distinguished lecture series, featuring our treasured speaker, Father Paolo Benanti. In Rome, the Gregorian University is comprised of three distinct schools: the Pontifical Gregorian University, the Biblicum, and the Orientale. This is the center of the Jesuit universe for creating inspired and discerning servant leaders of the Universal Catholic Church. This is where the Church does its thinking. Every year, the Gregorian educates 3,000 select students from over 150 countries all around the globe. The Jesuit tradition of academic excellence focuses on ecumenical scholarship, biblical research, advanced theological studies, and canon law. New specialized programs such as child protection, discerning leadership and management, and interreligious studies address the ever-changing needs of the Church and the world. Gregorian graduates form the nucleus of future church leaders as pastors, teachers, bishops, spiritual guides, and many other important roles. Let the word of the Lord guide those who seek it. Thank you again for joining us. I would now like to introduce to you the president of the Gregorian University Foundation, Father Michael McFarland of the Society of Jesus. Father.
Thank you very much, Howard. What's a Franciscan priest and a theology professor doing speaking about artificial intelligence? Actually, this is consistent with the identity and mission of the Catholic Church, the Gregorian University, and both the Jesuit and Franciscan orders. The Gregorian was founded during the Renaissance in the humanistic tradition valued by St. Ignatius and his Jesuit companions. This sees God as present and active in the world, most of all in humanity and all our history and activities. In this view, there is no clear distinction between the sacred and the secular, between theology and the rest of human learning. All our world is sacred. All human learning leads us to God. This attitude is rooted in the doctrine of the Incarnation, which affirms that God has entered into our human existence in the person of Jesus Christ. It is especially emphasized in Jesuit and Franciscan spirituality. In the Jesuits, we talk about finding God in all things. The Franciscan formulation is more poetic, but also reverences the holy presence of God in all of creation. In that spirit, the Gregorian University, from its founding as the Roman College in 1551, has always taken a comprehensive and holistic approach to human knowledge, with an emphasis on philosophy, which in those days included natural science, mathematics, psychology, anthropology, and politics. In the 16th and 17th centuries, its faculty included some of the greatest scientific minds of that era, including the astronomer and mathematician Christopher Clavius and the polymath Athanasius Kircher. Even in this age of academic specialization, its curriculum includes many areas beyond theology, including philosophy, psychology, anthropology, economics, history, art, ecology, and communications. Its faculty and students grapple with many of the most important moral issues of our day, including war and peace, injustice and oppression, economic inequality, religious conflict, child abuse, and the environment. Our speaker for this year's distinguished lecture, Father Paolo Benanti, is in that great humanistic tradition, a true Renaissance man. He was born in Rome in 1973 and studied engineering at La Sapienza, the public university in Rome. That was his first career. But then the grace of God drew him to the Franciscans, where he joined the Third Order Regulars in 1999. He studied philosophy at the Lateran University and theology at the Gregorian, getting his doctorate in moral theology, specifically in bioethics. To further his studies, he spent time at the Pellegrino Center for Bioethics here at Georgetown University. He is now a professor of moral theology, bioethics, and neuroethics at the Gregorian University, recently promoted to ordinarius, meaning full professor. Professor Benanti serves on several advisory groups on the implications of artificial intelligence, including for both the Vatican and the Italian government. Like many of his fellow faculty members at the Gregorian, he uses his knowledge for public service and service to the church. He also consults for major tech companies, including Microsoft and IBM. He's the author of 2 books, Homo Faber, The Techno-Human Condition, and Human in the Loop. I'm very pleased to present to you one human we definitely want in the loop, Professor Paolo Benanti. Father Benanti will speak for about a half hour. Then we will have time for questions, which you can submit by clicking on the chat button on your Zoom window. Professor Benanti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really glad of this invitation. I'm really happy to share this journey about the ethical of AI with you. Let me share my screen so I can use some of the slides that I prepared for today. Well, I would like to shape the journey that I would like to propose in 3 points. The first one is actually a clarification of the perspective that an ethicist like I am would like to inject looking at technology. And then I would like to questioning technology. It is simple to let arise how artificial intelligence could have a huge interplay with human behavior. And in the third and last point, I would like to stress the societal impact of this kind of technology, considering that those are kind of technology that are distributed and working in a form that we can define as platform. But let's go starting from the first point. What does it mean, have an ethical approach to technology? Well, just for an example, I found these 2 pictures of Fifth Avenue, New York. The first one is Easter morning of the early days of the last century, and the second one is Easter morning of 1913. Easter morning is just casualty, is not on purpose. But what is interesting is that on the left, you can see there are no cars. On the right, there are not any more horses. So when I'm doing my lecture in the Greg, I'm usually to provoke my student asking them, what is better? Well, now we are online, so I cannot see your faces and I cannot interact with you. But let me try to summarize some kind of answer that usually arises from people when I make this question. Well, probably a lot of you are thinking that if you was in in the supply chain of the horses, then things are going worse. If you are in the supply chain of a car, then things are going better. Well, we have to confess that it's not so difficult to train a former stable worker to someone that could change tire for a car. But of course, we have a shifting of job, we have a transformation of society, and probably after a few months or a few years, we have a new form of stability. Then, if you probably are really aware that we have a problem with our environment, you can think that in long-term condition, the changing from horse to cars produce a really huge impact on environment. And you can have the tendency to tell us that probably the changing is for worse. well, you know, I am an academician, so I'm a little bit obsessive. So I found this number of Appleton's magazine, January, June 1908, in which is written that actually in the summer of 1906 or 7, 20,000 New Yorkers died because they was infected by some kind of flies connected to the poo of the horses. So in short term, the quality of life introduced by the car instead of horse was really a huge gain. Well, so what is the bottom line? Is better or worse? The problem is not giving the answer, but the problem is the wrong question. Because when you approach to ethics and technology, the matter is not to ask you if something is better or worse. We have to change the quality of question. And this is why I would like to make this first perspective, because what I would like to make with you today is questioning technology in the sense of ethics of technology. Well, what is the kind of question that ethics of technology has to propose? Well, the problem is about innovation. What does it mean to be innovative? What is the difference between innovation and development? And what is the difference between an innovation that is simple regarding the speed up of process on doing things and development that regard also the effect on society, justice, and other kind of societal effect? Well, to explain this kind of question, let me back to another example of technological innovation. If we went to New York, Manhattan, and if I bring you on the Parkway, that is a 6-lane highway that is used to connect Manhattan to Long Island, probably you will see something that you can see in every highway, something that is made by concrete and asphalt. Well, but if we go in a public library, we can find a really famous book. It's the life of Robert Moses, written, it's a huge book, 1,000 pages, written by Robert Caro. The book is so well made that it is considered one of the best 100 non-fictional books in the English market. And inside the book, you can see that actually the way in which was built the Parkway was really politically oriented, because Robert Caro at that time has a really clear political view of the reality. Probably his idea are not anymore shareable or doable, but at that time was really common. The idea was to keep the best part of the city for the best part of population. In his own mentality, the best part of population was simply the white middle class. So to keep Long Island and his beloved Johnson Beach in Long Island only for white middle class, what he did? Well, the first thing was to not build any system of public transportation to Long Island. And the second thing is to build that concrete bridge over the Parkway 2 feet lower than the standard. In that way, no public buses or no buses can commute on the Parkway, and only the people that can own a car at that time, white middle class, can go to the beach. Well, this little example from the history of technology allow us to shape or to clear or to define better what does it mean ethically questioning technology. We have to recognize that every form of technological artifact is a displacement of power, is a form of order. So the first duty of ethics questioning technology is simple to make clear, to make transparent which kind of form of power, which kind of the displacement of order that technological artifact produce in society, and make it clear for all the stakeholders in the decision process in the world. So the first duty of ethics is not to give a judgment, but simple to produce the question. This is the old fashionable way that was used by Socrates, one of the father of ethics, when he was used to questioning his opponent, asking them TST, that translated from ancient Greek mean, what is it? The first question is, what is it what we have in front of us? Then we have to recognize with London winner that technical arrangement, our form of order, is a way in which displays order and power inside a society. But it will be not complete if I not introduce to you another element. You know, when we talk about technology, we have to recognize that exist 2 kinds of technology. One form of technology is what we can define special purpose technology. A special purpose technology is simply a technology that we develop to give an answer to something that in reality is questioning us. For example, I am hungry, and so I have to develop a bow. Then after the bow, I develop a gun, then a rifle, then a nuclear bomb, simple to obtain more food. I'm really curious how a nuclear bomb can obtain more food, but that is just to give an example. So a special purpose technology is something that innovation after innovation produce the effect in a more efficient and powerful way. But there are moments in the history of technology in which this kind of innovation simply do not produce a special purpose technology. There are forms of technologies that we can define general purpose technology. A general purpose technology is not used to make something, but it changes all the way in which do everything. So someone is arguing that the first form of general purpose technology was the wheel, but for sure steam power and electrical power are form of general purpose technology. If you think to electrical power, today we have nothing that works without electricity. And so this is a really clear form of general purpose technology. Well, and now ethics of technology asks to the technology, what happened when we develop a general purpose technology? Well, to answer to this kind of question, let me show the two elements that could help us to understand. On the left part of the screen, you can see Samuel Insull. Samuel Insull is an Irish migrant that came to the United States, and he was the founder of General Electric Company. When he founded General Electric Company, he think how to distribute electrical power to everyone. And to distribute electrical power to everyone, he looked at one model that he called democratize. We lower the price, more family will acquire electrical company, and we can distribute that kind of power. It's the same model that we are using now with gigs with mobile phone. We lower the cost and everyone is using more mobile data. But that was not the only model that we have. So on the right side, you can see an original map taken by the first 5-year plan made by Lenin, by the new Russian Republican groups that provide the Sovietization of Republic through the electrification of URSS. So when we have a general purpose technology, it's really clear that actually there is no possibility to distribute this technology without having what the German philosopher used to call Weltanschauung, a vision of the world. We always inject some sort of values, some set of understanding of reality, and the technology will be in some way a multiplier of that kind of vision, make it real in its development. Well, these two examples can help us to understand what is happening now. You know, the bridges of Moses. If you look at what happened during the last pandemic, I'm not sure in every country where you come from, but I'm sure for Italy, Italy has this constitutional right to health and a public health system. So we have to give vaccination to all the adults and young in Italy. Well, this is constitutional rights was ordered by an algorithm behind a web portal of public health system that gives the order in which everyone has to take the vaccination. So what was made by concrete and asphalt by Moses nowadays is made by algorithm, by software that give us an ordering tools and give us an order in which we can acquire or in which we can satisfy something that is a constitutional right or other form of right. In the second example, the example of Insull and Lenin, we have to recognize that also today the world is almost polarized. We have a Western democratic way to distribute artificial intelligence through data center, and at least we know the Chinese way that is not perfectly aligned, and that is really different from the Western one. So if this is ethical of technology, I would like to use this approach to questioning artificial intelligence. Well, to questioning artificial intelligence, we can do it in a lot of ways. Actually, I make more than 90-hour classes on that in Gregorian, so I cannot answer to or neither make all the questions to you in less than 30 minutes. What I would like to stress is 2 or 3 anthropological relevant elements that for me are a key point just to start to questioning artificial intelligence. To make this key point, we have to be back to the origin of information. You can say on the left, Edward Shannon, that was the father of the concept of information. He was working as an engineer during World War II, so the problem was to transmit a message from the 2 sides of the pond. To answer technically to this question, he developed a concept that was the concept of information. But he knows something that the mentor of his PhD told to him. Edward, if you don't want to be questioned by someone, simple use entropy, because entropy is really difficult to see. And I don't know how many of you remember something about Maxwell demonstration of entropy, but Maxwell said that if we put 2 gases, one hot and one cold, inside the box, to be divided in hot from one side and cold from the other side, we have to think about a little devil that simply reject the hot molecules and let pass the cold one. Well, this category that became something that is measurable as an entropy was used by Shannon, that with a brilliant technical solution, but really undiscussed philosophical foundation, did something. He asked to himself, what is needed by this little devil to understand which molecule can pass and which not? 1 bit of information. 1, it passes. 0 cannot pass. This idea of linking information and noise to order and disorder was really brilliant and was behind everything that we face today, including artificial intelligence. One of the side effects of this was the idea that Schrödinger took from Shannon and said, so everything that has an order inside could be understood in terms of information. I know something that is really anti-entropic, that works, that we could imagine can work with information, and it apply it to life. And so Schrödinger started to think about the idea that inside every living beings should be an aperiodical crystal that could have inside some form of information. Well, Watson and Crick, a few years later, taking both intuition, founded that kind of information, not in an aperiodical crystal, but inside the DNA. But what I would like to stress is another building made by Shannon, and the building was, like, as you can see in the left little images, on a little mouse, mechanical mouse, for a special labyrinth that hitting the wall of the labyrinth allow a little switch to be turned on and off, changing the direction, and in that way, he can find the exit from the labyrinth. Is one of the first examples of using information for a control of a machine. Well, we say that a mouse is smart, is intelligent, because it's able to find the exit from a labyrinth. Is it the machine now intelligent? Is it the machine able, through the information, not only to replace the human power of muscles, but also to have a means, to have an hands? This is the starting of artificial intelligence that is based on information for the control of behavior. But is the second man that you can see in the picture, Norbert Wiener, a famous mathematician, that formalized that using of information in something that is called cybernetic loop. This is part of the core of my study when I was in Georgetown as a visiting scholar. Well, we have to switch to another brilliant woman that was in the same circle, cultural circle with the 2 men, that was Margaret Mead, that start to think to apply this idea of information and control also to living beings, hormonal signaling, and also to the system, social effect. So we have a cybernetic loop as the idea to use through a sensor the information produced by the sensor to control the behavior of a machine. Well, what is the best sensor for a machine at that time? The human beings. And you can imagine how this reshaped the engineering of machine. If you remember an old movie of World War II, you can see an anti-air artillery, 3 people, one that is watching where the airplane comes, one that is with a wheel regulating the height, and another one that giving the direction. If you put 2 clapsticks, human beings is the sensor, and the information produce the movement. Well, Shannon and Wiener produced that kind of innovation, but Wiener has a sort of cautions problem, and also for the military use of this. And he wrote the book that you see in the middle, The Human Use of the Human Beings, Cybernetics and Society. So what is the role of human beings if information is for control? And you can see on the right what Wiener and Betts make applying that kind of system also to the human behavior. So in the same route of information used for control that gives smartness to the machine is the idea and possibility that that kind of information not only control the machine, but also the human beings. And this is the reading that was made by a European continental philosopher, Martin Heidegger, of the cybernetic idea made by Wiener. In a conference on the 1965, by the really apocalyptic title, like Heidegger was loved to do, the Endes des Denken in der Gestalt der Philosophie, the end of thinking in the age of philosophy, Heidegger was used to say that you can think only in 2 languages, Greek and German. So cybernetic loop. Loop is English, not good. Cybernetic as a root from Greek, kyber, that mean the one that control. He translated in Steuerung in German, and he was concentrated on the fact that if we cybernetic can give the control of reality, we need any more philosophy, we need any more science. For us, is enough to control reality. But there is a passage that at that time, Heidegger cannot imagine how much prophetic could be. And Heidegger said, if we put on the same level, human as a sensor and machine, are we sure that is the human that is controlling the machine and is not the machine that is controlling the human? So when you see a young man with his mobile phone, is his finger that is controlling the mobile, or are the notifications of the mobile that are controlling the human beings? Well, artificial intelligence, that is neither else that something that uses information to predict and to give an answer to the machine, plays here a huge ethical problem on who is the controller of who. Especially if we think, like Daniel Kahneman Nobel Prize did, about the quality of intelligence. Because our intelligence is given by 2 systems, system 1 and system 2. Unfortunately, we use system 1 95% of time. It is unconscious, fast, associative, and like an automatic pilot. And we are in this intuition and instinct. Rational thinking happens only 5% of time. It takes effort, slow, logical, lazy in the system. Well, if I can use a metaphorical image, system 1 is like, when a famous tennis player react to a serving made at 180 kilometers per hour, and he make a return ace in that corner. He made it, is intelligent, but he didn't think so much. System 2 is like when Garry Kasparov make that movement that let him win a chess match. Really think it, really slow, but really different from the system 1. Usually when I'm in Italy, I make a joke that works with Italian culture, and I tell to the woman, look, every time that your husband start to answer to you, yes, honey, yes, my dear, yes, honey, yes, my dear, it's system 1. It was not thinking to what you are doing. Well, the problem is that artificial intelligence system with notification, with this behavior that is adapting to you, tailored to you, could be the perfect system 0 that simple allow us to use much more system 1 than system 2. Because, system 1 is caused by repeated experience, clear display, primary idea, and good mood. Daniel Kahneman show us that if you give a judge coffee, the number of freedom on parole after he take a coffee is more than double than before. So just in case, if you go to a judge, bring with you the coffee. It let you feel familiar, feel true, feel good, feel effortless. So this sense of easiness is made by this kind of designing of interaction between this intelligent machine and human beings. And here we are back to the origin of philosophy. Because, as a theologian, I cannot not be thrilled when I see the way in which a lot of our people is reacting or connecting to the kind of data produced by artificial intelligence. When we move from mythology to philosophy, Heraclitus, that was one of the first philosophers that we have only fragment from him, was saying the thing that is written in Greek that I try to translate for you in English. The gods that is in Delphi is not talking, is not shouting, is giving a meanings. Well, the God that is in Google is not talking, is not shouting, is giving a meaning to data. Well, we have a sort of oracular relationship, and this is an epistemological deep problem, I cannot clarify it now, in the way in which we acquire the data that artificial intelligence provide to us. So bottom line, we have to recognize that this kind of machine could be in the life of many people a new source of authority that produce a new way in which we believe to credible sources. And I think that everything that is connected with the recent things about, true and fake news on everything that is ongoing on social media platform, talk about that. Well, this kind of pinging instrument could be also really good because this idea of allow us to do things could be really good. Imagine for the elderly. We move from the early 40 of the last century to nowadays from an expectancy of life of 45 years to 83, 84. Well, we do that thanks to the medicine. But today, when you are 55, 60-year-old, at least you have 3 drugs to take. And one of the most important things is the idea of stitching to the therapy. So using artificial intelligence to help, for example, the elderly to stitch to the therapy could be a really good use of this idea of using machine to allow human to stitch to a behavior. But on the other side, artificial intelligence, especially the generative one, can produce content that feels like true, but that they are not true. These famous AI-generated images of the Pope with this really fancy poof make the turn of the world. The real new thing is that it was made not by a pro, but someone that's simply making a joke with an AI. So it's really democratized. And you can imagine what is the effect if we push this kind of fake or not real content generated in the public sphere for the effect that it has on population. Well, my time is running out. I simply would like to stress the last concept. And the last concept is that we are producing this kind of innovation through something that we define platform. Well, there is an old way to say that when the finger points to the moon, I don't know if in the United States is the same, the stupid look at the finger and not at the moon. Well, I would like to say that there is any stupid here, but I need the moon. So if you look at these 3 cruise deck of 3 different moments on the space exploration, you can see Apollo 11, Shuttle Endeavour, and Crew Dragon. Well, let's analyze it. With Apollo 11, we have NASA as the agency that produced the unbelievable thing to go to the moon, and there is a computer that was able to make only one function: allow the lander to arrive to the moon without crashing. That computer was 1,000 of the power on any processor that you have in your mobile phone. Unbelievable. Well, that computer was developed and realized by NASA and was made only for one function. Human was still in the loop. Shuttle Endeavour, you can see that there is a general purpose computer that is a mediation between all the action made by human beings and the ship. That general purpose computer, once again, is made by NASA. And now we come to the Crew Dragon, developed and launched May 3rd, 2020. And we can say that this is the first spaceship that was made by a private company. What before was in charge of the most powerful nation in the world, now is in charge of a private company. And the really new thing is that there is not a special developed computer. They acquire it on the market. Codes is the name, customer out of the shelf. And because they are so little, so few, they don't wait so much. They use 3. Is all the three computers give the same results? The results is good. If one give a different results, probably an interference happen and it make again the calculation. But this kind of difference in project, in design, produce a really different kind of things. If you see what we saw in the present slide, and sorry about that, you can see that there is a special design of the button, because when you have an acceleration and you are going to the space, you have to be sure that the finger don't go on the wrong part of the screen. In the Crew Dragon, there is this fancy touch screen like in a Tesla, but for sure they cannot use where they are launching themselves. So this idea of having this kind of costs, really cheaper system of control that we can define platform, produce really low cost, but this really low cost happen with a shifting of control to the central control unit that is the platform. This is the next mission, and you can see that the next mission that is made by NASA against has the really clear switch, because you have not to make any mistake when you are in full acceleration. The thing is the difference of cost. If you look at how much cost Apollo, it cost $30,000 million. Space Shuttle 20,000. Crew Dragon 1,000. It's for the evolution? No, because Orion, that is once again made by the state, it costs 23,000 million. So the idea of having platform is the idea of develop this kind of system like a middle layer used by a central organization that cut the cost but shift the transforming and powering to the control system. When we have a platform access to social media, is the owner of social media that owns the news. When we have AI in a cloud, is the owner of the cloud that give the service and enable you in execution of process. So there is a new political player, not only the politics, not only the citizen, but also the platform. And here we come to the last question that I would like to propose you. With this idea of shaping society through AI and through digital society, are we facing algorocracy or algorithms? Should we recognize that we are facing a power given by algorithm, moving from what was the legitimate constitutional power, or we have power distributed in a way that is respectful of the way in which we have made the constitutional power? Because the real problem is the nudging effect that this kind of algorithm has on people and on behavior of people. So we're facing a new way to obtain something that is not only according to the normative law, but is according to an algorithm law. If an algorithm can push you on the center of a Gaussian curve of behavior, this is the problem for democracy. Like every one of you that experienced to buy something on an online platform experience, because the machine, the artificial intelligence algorithm that suggests you when you buy a book, probably you are interested also in, not only predict what you are interested in, but produce 5 to 15% more of acquiring on that platform. And so this is a problem for the foundational, legitimate foundation of a democratic system. Xi Jinping clearly expresses himself that this is much more respectful in his perspective of the human rights than the strange idea of democratic system. Well, we know, and this is the struggle of modernity, from Hobbes to John Rawls, that actually a legitimate law is when is played according to the formal constraint on the rule of law. And there was 5 in rule theory. Let me stress 3. A rule has to be knowledgeable, has to be universal, has to be general. Well, an algorithmics of AI that distributed in a platform, in a social sphere, behave like a pseudo law. Is it knowledgeable? You can think that you can make open source, but the winner of Turing Prize, the Nobel Prize for Informatics in 1982, tell us in a paper, the title was Trusting the Trust, that once you compile the code, so translate from English language to machine language, you can inject what you want inside the code, and that is not more visible. So it's not understandable. The second one is universal. Do not smoke, it's for everyone. Well, this kind of algorithms are profiling people. They apply to someone and not someone else. Biases that we know in artificial intelligence is this: they apply to someone and not to someone else. The law has to be general. What is the difference between universal and general? Well, if I make a law, everyone has to obey to Father Paolo. I love that law. Well, it's universal because it applies to everyone, but the subject is just myself. Check and balance in constitutional state give the rules in which something is general. The algorithm obey only to the owner of the service. So when we inject algorithm in social relationship, AI algorithm in social relationship, we have three core tension with rule of law: knowledgeable, universality, and generality of the law. This is this fast journey inside ethics of AI would like to present us some core question that we have to answer to keep the social system in a democratic and free way as we have built up to nowadays. My time is over. I'm sorry. I could continue to go deep inside a lot of questions, but I don't want abuse of your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Father Benanti. You gave us a lot to think about and a very good framework for thinking about it. You raised a number of important issues. The issue of transparency, for example, and there's been a lot written about the lack of transparency, especially as we move to neural networks, where even the creator doesn't know what it's going to do or how it's going to go, beyond the issue that Ken Thompson raised. And then bias embedded in these algorithms, and sometimes it's unintentional, sometimes it's intentional. So if we want to use these for human good, who is responsible and how do they carry out that responsibility? I know the EU is talking about regulating artificial intelligence and computer algorithms, but especially AI. What's the role of government and how can they effectively intervene in these areas?
You know, that is not an easy question for two reasons at least. Because the recent news is that also NVIDIA, one of the major production of GPU, that is the core element of calculation to produce AI, reached the evaluation of $1,000 trillion in the stock market. We have 9 companies, all the 9 companies in the world connected to the production of AI that rocket star over $1,000 trillion. So this size is actually bigger than a lot of states in the world. And so we have entities that are not public that for the first time they are not under one state, and they can compete with a lot of states with the power of money that they have. So the idea of regulating something that is becoming too big, it's really challenging now. And then we have another difficulty because, you know, once when I was the programmer of the software, I write my software in a really logical way, if this, then that. So every time that there is an if, I put a choice with that. Well, that kind of linearity of responsibility already was broken. If you think how many millions of lines of code are inside a system like Windows 3.1, you don't have one coder. And then there is this idea of nesting part of code inside other part of code with library. So there is no one that has the full transparency of the full code. More than that, today, we are playing with things that are simple too big to be knowledgeable, also in the quality of data. And then there is another complication in the system, because, you know, I could be the big company that simple produce an AI tools and put in a cloud. And I'm the producer. Then I don't sell it to you. Probably there is a third element that we can define as the deployer that take my service and adjust to application that you will use. Think to OpenAI and GPT. GPT now is infused in a lot of applications. but the way in which you infuse let you lose control on what OpenAI did. So the idea of this multi-layer complex actor on bringing AI in our pocket is one of the most complicated things. This is probably one of the ways why EU adopt a customer risk assessment. So we don't care who developed the AI. We don't care too much who deployed AI. We are looking at the risk assessment on the end users. And we judge it with a risk assessment, and here has to be safely declared by the one that would like to put it in action with the last customer. It's not a universal access. It's the first form of regulation. Probably there are a lot of holes inside that regulation, but it's the first steps. And so we are waiting to see what's happening, especially in the United States. I know that the president was in the Bay last week just to talk about that. And probably we will see other form of regulation or transparency mandatory or some kind of declare to allow the AI to be coexistent with human beings in society. Yes, of course, let me tell you the last things. If we are talking of an AI system that is used to recognize coffee beans in a coffee beans production to see if a coffee has a mold, we are not talking about that. We are talking about AI that is touching the decision-making process on human beings. This is the quality that is more urgent to regulate.
Good. Well, you brought this up. What is the obligation then of the private companies that develop this AI? Should we hold them accountable for the implications of what they do? Do they have an inherent responsibility to make sure that this is used for human good?
You know, we are playing also with the market. So probably the company that are developing the solution is not the same company that make the deployment of that solution. So imagine that I'm the developer of a system or an artificial intelligence system that can recognize music. I listen music and the system give me the title of the song. Well, this system could be embedded by a phone producer inside their phone. So is it the phone producer that apply that to a service, the accountable one, or is the producer of the service? This multi-layer reality make it really difficult to say in every single occasion who is the responsible or accountable for. And we need probably to stop a little bit. It's a multidisciplinary area that we have to build to give us a framework to protect people and to protect business and to allow both to grow.
Okay, good. I have a question from somebody you met at Microsoft, Marco Alban. He asked, with the potential development of bots that simulate having a conscience, thanks to generative AI, there's a growing concern about confusion among people. In order to interact effectively with secular players, it's crucial to refine our understanding and explanation of what makes us uniquely human from a philosophical perspective. Could you please provide suggestions on how we can approach this and define these aspects of what makes us human more clearly, specifically considering our interactions with secular and non-believing players?
Well, I put this question, put the nail in the cube, you know, because we are facing a challenge between a machine that become every day much more human and a human thanks also to the neuroscience that is understanding every day himself as a machine. So the real core question is, what does it mean to be human? And this is an ongoing question. What is the difference between something that's functioning and someone that exists? I have a slide that I'm using to project to my student in which there is a hair dryer and a duck. If you took the silhouette of both, they are really similar. But if you turn off the hair dryer, then you can turn it on. If you turn off the duck, it's died. So the difference between a living beings and a machine, it's really, vague, because I told you, when we introduce information in that way that is not really well philosophically rooted, we make a parallel between order and information without defining well, philosophically speaking, what is information. Because according to some philosopher of information, they use the word information in a way that define something that is what it is. And this is a metaphysical approach of information. So in a post-metaphysical world, having this kind of approach, it's making us real clear the question, what is the difference between something that exists and someone that exists as something that works? More than that, supposing that you have pain in a tooth, the tooth will communicate with the brain with a low-level connection that we call nerve that give a constant signal to the pain receptor in the brain. Well, that kind of signal, engineering speaking, is not really different by the kind of electrical signal that is used every day to connect hard disk to the LED light that show to the user when it's working. Well, if I use my computer all the day and the LED is turned, LED is turned on all the day, the computer works. If I have pain in my tooth for all the day, it was a bad day. So the quality of the experience is one of the answers to this difference. Then the third and last element is in the same Turing definition of artificial intelligence. Turing definition of artificial intelligence is a game that we can say beyond the wall. It take the imitation game made by a man and say, if we put beyond the wall a man and a computer, and I start to questioning them, and I'm not able to define who is the man and who is the computer, well, the computer will be defined as intelligence as a man. Well, but if we go back to the roots of philosophy, Plato in the Republic tell us about the myth of the cave, in which he told us that acknowledging the truth is not be happy for the confused image on the wall, but going beyond the wall to see what is that is projecting that kind of image. So the same core idea of artificial intelligence is to produce something that is confusing our sense. So now today, with the higher quality of artificial intelligence, we can recognize that that kind of model works, but don't tell us who is someone and who is something.
Wow, that'll get your head spinning. I have a couple of quick questions to end up, although you could go on these. One would be, what are the implications for education? And there are two aspects. One of your professors actually from the Sapientia asked, should we make sure that all students are educated in algorithms and AI so that they can recognize what are the underlying implications? What does this all mean? And the other is, how can artificial intelligence help us in general in education to be more effective, to help students to grow and deepen their knowledge?
Okay, there is someone that is saying that no one will be hired for his own skill. I think that this is I do not agree to that position. If you would like to hire a doctor, the doctor has to have skill to touch your body. Probably an accountant could be easily replaced by an algorithm, but this is another matter. So talking about education, I think that we have to divide and clarify, because probably there are different efforts. If we look at the last wave of generative AI, especially GPT and similar tools, what impressed me of GPT is the ability of translate level of language. So if you give a legal contract to a GPT system, you can ask that he translate in an English that a Key 12 student can understand. So you can imagine a really democratizing system of education through GPT, if you think to share knowledge to different level in the world, different zone in the world, reducing also the marketization of education. And that is one topic. Let me make a little stop in what I'm saying. Bottom line, I'm telling to you that every technological tool could be weaponized. So the first time that as a species, we wake up in a cave and we took a collapse, it was to open up more coconuts or to open up more school of other people. So every tool could be a weapon. In that sense, for every good use of AI, you can imagine a bad use. So what is the democratization of education could be the perfect persuasive tools inside a public society. And this is what China wrote when they say that the GPT system, like in China, has to include the values of Communist Party. And then we have the idea that, of course, we have to know something in computer science. You know, when industrial chemistry become one of the standards in Europe, we start to introduce some form of biology and chemistry study in the higher education. That was made by Jesuit, by the way. And that was necessary because it's a new form of alphabetization. When just was important to read books, we start to teach to people to read. When it was important to know something about mathematics, we give that in curriculum. I think that the next step is to give knowledge on how the AI machine works to everyone. And this is give them the ability to use them. Then there is also another things. You know, worldwide, we are used to drive. Everyone, almost everyone can drive, but you need a license to drive. And the license to drive is given to you to avoid that you damage yourself or someone else. Now, the problem is that you can use an AI for free on internet, and no one is requiring you a license to use an AI. Should we think also a public license system for AI? Is that a form of education that could be injected in society? You know, that give back control on the government. That is what partially answering something that we said before. The car market allow any producer to do what they want. He has to fix some standard. Then the user has to be trying to jump inside the car. That probably is also more deeply than education, because you know there is a lot of countries in which higher education is not understood as essential for the formation of human beings. So probably we have to change also the model of education to obtain something like that.
Very good. Well, as a follow-up, since we can't have a whole course here, could you recommend a book or some publications that somebody might read if they want to know more about this subject?
You know, everyone, if you put AI in your title, you will be published. So there is a long list of books. There are some good introductory readings, and there is also, you know, there is a northern state in Europe, I think is Icelandic or something like that, that develop a public online classes on AI, also in English. So I think that this is a wonderful good start for everyone. They give you also the credit at the end of the classes. It's really simple, give materials. It's really neutral. It's not founded by any company. It's not founded by any state, and is a form that could be a good start for that.
Great. Maybe you could send us the references there, and we can post them with your lectures so that people.
Absolutely. I will send you some material after the lecture.
That's terrific. Well, we're just so grateful for your sharing your knowledge, and especially that you're looking into this very important topic that's clearly going to have such an enormous impact on our future, and that you're doing it from the perspective of a genuine, deep knowledge of our humanity and a reverence for our humanity and a real desire that we have a better future as a people. So thank you for all your work, and may God continue to bless you and sustain you in it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all your good work. And we're very pleased, not only for the work you're doing, but to have you to represent the great quality of intellectual work and the depth of reflection that goes on at the Gregorian University in so many different topics that affect us as a church, as a people, as a society. And we welcome all the people who have had an interest in this. And we also ask you to consider donating to help that work. We know that the professors, and Father Benanti can tell you this, this world-class faculty works at great sacrifice economically and also in their vocations to carry on this work. And the tuition is very low. Many of the students come from the developing world, and even then they struggle to make it. And of course, we don't have a lot of wealthy alumni because they all go into ministry, which is not the most lucrative type of work. So we always look for people who want to help us in the Jesuits and the Pontifical universities to continue that work. And I hope we can hear from many of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to you.